I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And when I do, if you can, just give me a heads up so I know I'm not just showing you random slides of nothing. Give me a heads up. Can everybody see this initial slide? Quora.com? All right, we got thumbs up. Okay. In this webinar, Rapid Road to Sale from LOI to Final Offer. Going over a quick agenda, we're going to do introductions of our company for those of you that aren't familiar with Quora.com, and then also everyone in attendance in this webinar. Or I shouldn't say attendance, I should say speaking. So we got Rainier and James on the team, and also why you're here. So what are you going to learn? And then we're going to talk everything letter of intents, the importance of getting that first offer, how to get it, how to close them. So we're really going to be focusing in on that formal offer that really kicks things off with acquisitions and then eventually closes to a successful acquisition. So without further ado, quick introductions. My name is Andrew Gazdecki. I am the CEO and founder of Acquire.com. I've previously started and founded 2 different startups, both acquired. So I always like to say I've been on both sides of the table where, I'm selling a business and I've helped others sell their own businesses. And that's really, why I started Acquire.com, to make it easier for startup founders to get acquired just after going through the painful and confusing process myself. So that's me, and I'll hand it over to you, Rainier.
What's up, everyone? My name is Rainier. I'm one of the in-house M&A advisors here at Acquire.com. I have over a decade of experience in M&A, capital markets, investment sales. I've done tons of deals, and my job is to help everyone get the best price, best terms, best deal possible.
Well, that is a fact. All right, James, you're up.
Hey, everybody. My name's James. I'm the General Counsel here. I've been working in law about over a decade now, in M&A for about 7-8 years now. So I can come at this from a unique perspective, I like to think, both from the deal side and legal side. And I work with Andrew and Rainier in tandem to get the best terms and see the most successful exit possible for our customers.
Love it. And then for those of you that aren't familiar with Acquire.com, our goal is to build the world's most founder-friendly startup acquisition marketplace in the world. And a big part of that is really educating startup founders just the process of getting acquired. And big part of that is letter of intents, and we're going to be going over that today. It's a topic we could talk about for hours, days, long time. But before we get there, just going over our impact, we've been in business about 4 years. We've helped over 1,000 startups get acquired, totaling over $500 million in closed transactions. We have about 500,000 registered buyers on Acquire.com now. We have thousands of listings, and we've actually served 100 plus countries. I always like to joke that, I'm actually not joking, but we've closed an acquisition on every continent except Antarctica. So we're still trying to get a startup in Antarctica to close. So if you know one, let us know. But moving on to the good stuff. So how to get an acquisition offer to close. This one's pretty straightforward. And really the point of this is, when you receive a letter of intent, the main thing I want to get across with this slide is getting a letter of intent is really just the start of you getting acquired. It does not mean that you've officially gotten acquired, and you need to continue to sell your business all the way until the wire hits the bank. So I always like to say an acquisition is not closed until the wire hits the bank, no matter how great the LOI looks, how great the buyer says everything is. Always be selling your business all the way until the wire hits the bank. So we're going to be talking about that. So pre-LOI. So how do you get that initial offer? And so we're going to be doing a little bit of commentary here. I'm going to be, I guess, the commentator, and then James and Rainier are going to be driving. So really just diving right in. So why is that first offer so important? Why is that first letter of intent so crucial to having a successful acquisition process? And James, maybe I'll toss it over to you first in terms of the first item. So in terms of gives you leverage, what does that mean to you when we're talking about the importance of getting the first letter of intent in play?
Yeah, it's going to kick off the process. And I think most importantly, it's going to signal to the other buyers that it's a company worth selling and worth buying for them. So people are off the table, they're going to come to the table and they're going to recognize that it's something that other people are looking forward to, which is really powerful psychologically.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And leads into these other items here. So, Rainier, do you want to take the next two boxes, and then James, you'll take the next two? So, Rainier, in terms of momentum and inspiring FOMO or fear of missing out, how does that offer kind of influence buyers' behavior once you receive that initial letter of intent?
Great question. So the first offer is important because it gets the party started. Taking all this time to prepare your listing, all of your listing docs, all of a sudden the first offer comes in, all of the buyers get alerted, second offer comes in, third offer comes in, everyone gets FOMO, everyone has that sense of urgency. So in my opinion, the fun part of the listing process.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add too is, no buyer, in my opinion, wants to buy a business where they feel like they're the only buyer that's interested. It's the same with, startup investing. Typically don't want to be the first investor. There's a lot of psychology behind it, but like Rainier and James have said, that initial offer really kicks things off in terms of also your ability to leverage it for other buyers, where you can go to other buyer conversations and say, and you don't want to lie about it. You want to actually really have a letter of intent in hand, but you're able to use that as, a conversation point saying, hey, I have another buyer that's interested. And that allows you to potentially to take terms or increase valuation. But moving over to these other ones, James, in terms of, when you're selling your business, it's such a long process. How does it motivate you? And how do you interpret the last one, which is, it could be, the offer that you end up taking?
Yeah, I mean, you've done all this hard work of creating a business over the course of the years and put in blood, sweat, and tears to it, hoping it can be sold. But as soon as you get an offer, which is, a written document, and it shows a price tag on it, shows it that, that you can start this process and that you can close it. So it's really, really motivating. And you can pivot that how many offers you'd like. And then same with the one, right? I don't think most deals close with the first offer, but you got to treat it like that. And that's also really motivating as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, a lot of people, they go into an acquisition process not understanding that, it can take sometimes weeks, sure, but typically it takes months. So getting that first offer can be so motivating. And I think we can all agree. I liked what you said, Rainier, where it really does kind of kick off the party, where, again, once you get that first LOI, you're able to parlay it to other buyers. And known feature on acquire.com is when you receive a letter of intent from a buyer, all buyers are anonymously notified. So what I mean by that is they're notified where they'll get an email saying, hey, this business that you're interested in has just received a letter of intent. Terms are not disclosed or anything like that, but it lets everybody know that you have actually received a formal offer and there are other buyers interested. So again, when you're thinking about getting your first offer, you may be thinking, okay, I'm not there yet. What am I doing wrong? So these are some of the most common reasons, and I'm going to hand these over to starting with you, Rainier. Or actually, no, let's do this. Rainier, you pick maybe the top reasons. So we work with a ton of different startups. Not all of them get offers. Some of them get offers at different time periods, whether it's within weeks or within months. What would you say the top reason out of these five is the number one reason that a startup founder would not get a letter of intent?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll pick my favorite. Have you been priced strategically? So at Acquire, we've seen tons of deals. Just last month in March, of those 48 transactions, we have another 217 under offer. So we know exactly where the market is at, where multiples are trading at. We've got our finger on the pulse. So if you list just a little bit, 5, 10, 20% above what's trading on market, buyers are going to go elsewhere. We have 1,400 plus other listings on the marketplace. They're just going to go to another deal. So you've got to price it competitively to really get traction offers at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. All right, James, handing it over to you. Rainier took his top pick, and I think we would all agree. Or let me ask you this, James. Would you agree in terms of, the number one reason for not getting an offer is pricing too high and out of market ranges?
I definitely think so. Just via the platform, a lot of buyers they'll filter via multiples. And so they may not even see you, or if they're not doing that, they'll see something at like, 8, 9, 10x profit, for example. And like Rainier said, it's just a pass. It's just a swipe left on that because it's just not going to be worth their time in their minds to negotiate when there's better offers and better prices listed.
Yeah, and I would say, it's interesting because, you want to list with the importance of listing at, fair market value or really just the valuations that we recommend. So if you aren't sure how to price your startup, I highly recommend taking that advice because you don't have to sell at that price. But what it does is it allows buyers to at least take a look at your listing. So they'll go over your SIM, they'll go over your P&L, and you have to have an understanding that some buyers are looking at, I always say, sometimes between 20 to 50 deals per day. So if you don't have your business priced within the ranges at which they will not go outside of, they won't overpay in terms of at least showing interest, you're just going to miss out on a ton of buyer interest. And again, the more buyer interest you're able to create, the more offers you're going to receive. And that's how you can increase your valuation, or that's how you can negotiate against terms. So, yeah, just wanted to really stress the importance of pricing, because that is definitely the number one reason that startups don't get offers. But James, let's talk about 2 and 3. What's the importance? So I don't follow up on every lead. I'm not being professional and responsive. Like, why shouldn't a buyer just send me an offer because my business is so great? Why am I not getting offers? Because I'm not doing these things.
I can unpack this a bit. I think there's a couple things going on there, right? Like, even though I think it's shifted into a seller's market a bit, and entrepreneurship via acquisition has never been more popular, startups are sold, not bought. So you need to treat every buyer as if they are the buyer that's going to close with you until they tell you explicitly that they're not. There's a lot of buyers that are really busy. A lot are looking at a lot of deals. Some have full-time jobs, really like sort of high-level jobs too. So not going to be able to respond quickly, and they might forget to respond. So it's your job to keep them apprised. It's your job to make sure they have enough information. And it's your job to, frankly, make sure they still pay attention until they say, hey, no, I'm not interested. Or else, like I said, any buyer could be the buyer, and they are the buyer that you should consider is going to close with you until they tell you that they're not going to.
Yeah, and this is a big thing that we help with at Acquire.com in terms of, educating you on, again, you are selling your business. So you need to be following up with buyers, even if they don't respond to your initial message. But you have to send an initial message. You have to send them a link to be able to book a meeting with you. You need to be when I see professional on this list, really what that means to me is you're prepared. You have all the proper documentation that buyers almost require to schedule a call with you, which includes, do you have a clean profit and loss statement? Do you have a transition guide available? Just how easy have you made it for a buyer to wrap their head around your business? And then are you responsive to questions that they ask? Because if you're not responsive, really what you're doing is you're giving kind of a little bit of an indication of what due diligence is going to be like, how hard it's going to be to work with you. So completely agree with everything that you're saying, James. Okay, so we have these next points, Rainier. I'm going to hand both these over to you. So being open to creative deal structures and then asking for help. Walk me through just, how these can, help you get an offer if you haven't received one already on Acquire.com.
Yeah, these are two good ones as well. So price and obviously communication is important, but these being open to creative deal structures, being open to creating a win-win situation, that's going to be important as well. So price is important, yes, but also as important terms. Let's say if there's a holdback, there's seller financing, there's other parts of the deal that can help get to a certain price point. Being open to that discussion with the seller and the buyer, that's all going to be helpful in piecing a deal together. It's very rarely that we'll see an all cash deal at list price nowadays. So being open to asking the seller, hey, what's important to you? Is it price? Is it timing? Is it deal structure? You tell me.
I agree. James, you want to add anything to number 4?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Rainier said, all cash offers, especially in the higher ranges, are pretty rare. If I had to guess, I'd say like less than 5% of the
Let
time.
me
So
let me ask you, why
go
is that
ahead.
though? Why no all cash? Why? I want all cash.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is just a buyer just doesn't have that amount of cash on hand, or if they do, they're going to allocate their capital elsewhere. Another reason is that the buyer wants to mitigate their risk. If they just turn all the cash over to you immediately, and maybe the business isn't what they thought, or something goes haywire or something, it's really hard for them to roll that back. So a lot of times they'll turn it over to an indemnity holdback, sometimes an earnout on a seller note. Sometimes that seller note can be offset by the indemnity obligations of the seller too. So there's a bunch of just different levers that they can pull to help spread out their risk and make sure they're not completely exposed should something go awry.
Yeah, I like the part you brought up in terms of just the reducing risk. As a buyer, buying a startup is fairly risky. I don't know what's behind, every startup typically has some skeletons in the closet post close. So typically what you'll see, and if you're articulating this to buyers, saying you're open to creative deal structures, what you're really saying is you're saying, hey, I'm open to 80% cash on close. And then maybe the remaining 20% is seller finance. Maybe it's an earnout. More often than not, it's going to be seller financing, or it's going to be some form of maybe a conditional holdback. Seller financing is by far the most common structure, or additional, let's call it deferred payment. But just letting buyers know that you're willing to work with them to reduce the risk of buying your business will help you get to acquisition offers. And then we do see all cash offers from time to time, but again, I wouldn't. It's really the exception and not the rule, and it's only for businesses that are typically a very competitive bidding process. They have multiple offers on the table. You're able to command the terms and basically just say, I only want all cash offers. I have 10 different offers. Those scenarios, they do happen, but again, they're the exception and not the rule. So being open to creative deal structures can possibly get you to an all cash offer if that's what you're really looking for. But again, when you signal to buyers, then just say, hey, I'm open to entertaining all types of deal structures. I'm open to being creative with offers, can go a long ways, because again, what you're telling buyers is, I understand, this is a risky acquisition. I am motivated to sell my business. And the more offers you draw in, again, the more offers you draw in, the more leverage you have to increase valuation or terms or whatever is most important to you. So the last point is just asking for help. Rainier, I'm going to ask both you, Rainier and James, if I'm on acquire.com and I'm not getting any offers, how do we help you? How do you help me, Rainier?
I could go first. So ask for help. We're always happy to help. We specialize in these type of startups. We specialize in these type of business. We do hundreds of transactions, so we could get as creative as needed to piece the deal together. And really, just you asking for our help, we could tell you how your price looks compared to market pricing, what buyers are looking for. Again, we've got our finger on the pulse of what types of buyers are out in the market right now and what type of deal structures getting deals done.
James, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, yeah, that's basically it. Whether we're advising on your transaction, like if Rainier is like your the broker on your transaction, or you just want to write into our customer support, we see hundreds, if not thousands of these every month. Today, already I worked on like 15. This is the seller's probably only transaction in their life, or maybe it's just one or two, and we work on these all day. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. Please let us know if you have questions. We'll help on pretty much anything.
Yeah, there's been multiple scenarios where a startup's been listed on marketplace for months, and then when you finally, because what we've done at acquire.com that a lot of people I need to remind is we built out a full M&A advisory team, so we're here to help from start all the way to exit. So whether you've received an offer and you just want a high level opinion on if it's a good offer, we do that all the time. And then also really helping you, position your listing better to potential buyers, or pointing out what's missing, or are you priced strategically, like Rainier mentioned. All these things we can help with to ensure that you get an offer, because our incentives are entirely aligned. We want you to get acquired. So if you are on acquire.com and you're not, seeing those offers come in, definitely reach out, because like James said, we do it all day long. So we can definitely help there. All right. So post LOI. So this is where, again, you receive a letter of intent, and now your goal is to make sure that it closes. Again, when you receive an LOI, you have not sold your company. It's the first step to a process of selling your company, getting acquired. But it's really important to note that just getting an LOI is really, really the start. Rainier, do you want to walk just kind of through these stages in terms of, getting to all the way to close?
Yes. So here's the roadmap. There's going to be negotiation and really just getting to the specifics of getting to the finish line. Due diligence, technical DD, financial DD, everything needs to check out. Then you've got the asset purchase agreement, which is the legally binding document to sell the deal. And then you've got escrow, and that way the buyer can wire their funds, and then the seller can sign off, make sure everything checks out before releasing the funds. And then avoiding surprises. There's always something that comes up in every deal. I've been part of hundreds of deals, and it's not problems that kill deals, it's surprises. So the sooner that you can anticipate something coming up during the post LOI portion, the better. There's nothing worse than a surprise coming in at the 11th hour right before you're about to close, and it just blows up the deal. That's especially when buyer and seller are very emotional. And you're getting close to a deal when the buyer and seller get emotional. I've seen it happen time and time again. So just avoid surprises by just looking out for these different things ahead of time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And James, anything you want to add to just kind of the timeline?
Yeah, I agree with Rainier 100%. It's not problems. It's surprises. So just being upfront about everything throughout the process and making sure there's nothing hidden. If there's anything that you think might be somewhat hidden or covert, even just be proactive about disclosing it to the other side, and you should be in good shape.
Yeah, one real life example too is I always recommend this, but I recommend a pre-LOI signing call. And I was on one just last week. It was for a multi-million-dollar transaction. And there was just like a few things that the seller just wanted to confirm. Like just, hey, you're aware of this, you're aware of this, you're aware of this, you're aware of this. Because the last thing you want to do is sign an LOI and then you find out the buyer missed this key point, or, and you should be at a point where, the buyer has reviewed all your documents. They understand what they're getting themselves into. And you're going to move into due diligence, and you have a plan with due diligence. But just having that quick call before you actually sign an LOI can really go a long ways in case there's a few staking points. That could be maybe, I don't know, revenue dipped last month, or there's some, it could be a number of different things, but just that level of honesty that you display before you enter a formal agreement to sell your business or get acquired is huge, because after a surprise comes up in an acquisition, like Rainier and James have mentioned, the buyer can kind of you start to question sort of everything. And so again, anything you can do to avoid surprises, especially during due diligence before you sign an LOI, is absolutely huge. So definitely we're I guess if you get anything out of this, one slide is avoid surprises and just be honest. And again, bring your business. There's a saying, it's okay to bring your business with warts and bruises and bumps and all, because those can be viewed as, maybe you had a marketing campaign go terribly wrong or something like that, but those can also be viewed as opportunities. And so again, the more honest you are and the more upfront you are and the more you get ahead of surprises, the higher chances you have of making a letter of intent close. Okay, so we're getting a theme here, which is making it easy for the buyer in terms of closing the letter of intent and getting in front of certain issues. But also there's certain things that you as a seller need to do to ensure that a letter of intent will close. So I'm going to hand this over to you, James. I'm going to let you pick 1 through 5 in terms of, how does one of these items help ensure that a letter of intent closes, and why is it important that a seller goes through this?
Yeah, I'll knock off number one. A lot of times where you're based, it will change funding options. So just being ahead of that, making sure the buyer knows that. For example, if you're not in the U.S., you can't have an SBA loan. Maybe a BUPOS is another option there. Some other times there'll be restrictions on transfer of assets in certain countries throughout the world. So just being aware of that. This is primarily legal. So maybe loop an attorney then just to get a broad view of what an asset sale to potentially a foreigner might entail. And don't expect that the buyer knows this. It's your job to be prepared for this and let the buyer know ahead of time whether anything's complicated to the deal.
Yeah, and we see this quite a bit too. International buyers are not bad at all, but just understanding what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's probably a theme that we'll also have. All right, Rainier, you're next. You got either pick 2, 3, 4, or 5, and give us your opinion on why it's important.
Let me go with number 4. This is one of my favorites out of these. Funding. Confirm before signing. Make sure you have a firm understanding of where your buyer is coming up with the capital. If it's a traditional lender, SBA lender, BUPOS, you want to get an idea of what that process looks like. If you can help provide any of those documents to help speed up the process, introduce yourself. That way, if anything comes up, you can answer any questions. And more importantly, get an idea of timeline, because it's the worst thing that can happen is both the buyer and seller think that they can close in 30 days, but the lender needs 45 or 60 days. So really, it's just managing expectations with the lender or whatever that capital.
And what's a great way to verify funding? Like, okay, so you're gonna buy my business, Rainier. How can I verify that you have the capital on hand?
So there's a cool feature on acquire.com where you can upload your funds. So we have out of all the buyers, we have over 500,000 buyers. We have 1.8 billion of verified funds on our platform. Do yourself a favor, upload your proof of funds. That way the buyer can stack rank you higher than the other buyers or other offers on the table, because they know that you have the ability to fund with your own capital. And then from there, it's just an easier discussion to talk about different funding sources, timelines, where you're going to come up with the down payment for the deal.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's simple as that. Just ask. Just be like, how do you plan on funding this acquisition? And then also ask the buyer to confirm their funding with acquire.com. We will review whatever documents that they submit. There's a number of documents we accept. Anything from a bank statement to, a brokerage account statement. So if you go into a transaction without confirming funding, you're setting yourself up for, potential risk. And this is unfortunately a reason we've seen, multiple transactions just get delayed, or, maybe they're fundraising in the background or whatever it may be. It's such an easy bar to clear in terms of just confirming that the buyer does have funds. Just ask, and then just tell them, hey, can you verify it through acquire.com? And then the benefit to you as a buyer is next time you acquire a business, or maybe you're in a competitive, bidding process. Again, you've verified your funds, and that gives sellers just so much more confidence to move forward with you than some person who maybe even has a higher offer, but they can't confirm funds, or it doesn't make sense, or they say they're going to finance it with this third-party company we've never heard of. So definitely utilize that feature. So shameless plug, verify your funds on acquire.com. All right, James, we got handing it over to you. We got number 2, 3, and 5 left. Why are they important?
I'll knock out 3 real quick. If it's a complex transaction, in a high value transaction, you probably want an attorney on that. It's your job to get one. I'd recommend bringing one in around the LOI when you have a draft of it. Most attorneys won't really have a ton to say on the LOI. I mean, if there's anything glaring, they'll obviously bring it up, but it's more so they can get familiarized with the transaction, make sure you're not agreeing to anything crazy. After that, they can sort of take over, all the legal components, which should be running contemporaneously alongside the due diligence process so that you minimize the time under LOI and keep it as quick as possible. And then usually if you have any questions, in my experience, I used to run deals as an M&A attorney. You'll probably ask your attorney everything under the sun. Things that they can't answer, they'll probably recommend a CPA. So at that point, you'll know whether you need a tax accountant as well. And then a CPA is a really good option to just to really map out and model out your deal. What's it going to look like post-tax? Are there any working capital adjustments, stuff like that? So you actually know the dollar amount is going to hit your bank account.
Yeah. I mean, really, again, this is where you want to avoid surprises. I remember one time, this doesn't happen too often, but we had, again, if you receive a letter of intent, we are able to give high level opinions on it. We cannot represent you as your attorney, but we do have attorneys that we can recommend. We have a full bench, so we have multiple different attorneys that we can recommend to you. But remember this, James? We got this LOI one time, and the seller refused to, talk to us, and so we just said, all right. But within the LOI, there should always be a disclosure of how the payments are going to be made. And what I mean by that is, purchase price is $1 million. Okay, so is it all cash at closing? Is it 80% cash at closing, 20% seller financing? And so they go through due diligence. They go through, again, this is a business that we weren't representing. So they were kind of just doing it on their own. And again, we are here to help, and we want to help, and we reach out to help. But sometimes, we don't get in touch with everybody. But on this situation, they get the APA back. Now that's the document that really goes over how the funds are going to be dispersed. And I believe it was 10% cash on close and then 90% seller financing.
Yeah, is that or less?
Yeah. And then of course, at that point, the owner of the business, enlisted with us or engaged with us to help them with their transaction. But again, if you're unsure as you go into this process, always remember the Acquire.com team, we're here from start to finish, and just catching little issues like that. We can be in your corner, whether that's, hey, this LOI checks out. Here's an attorney that we recommend. Here's a CPA that we've worked with on a number of different transactions. We will help make sure your deal goes smoothly. And when you list on Acquire.com, there is a 4% closing fee. So you might as well use our expertise. It's included entirely free. So that's just one that's very rare, but it does happen. So those are things that we can help with. Now, moving over to James, Rainier, you guys care if I take one of these, two or five?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
All right, you guys pick which one, 2 or 5. 2. You guys know this is my favorite one.
I choked. Rainier got the decision.
Yeah, they know me too well. So if I'm ever advising a deal or giving advice to my team, I'm always saying, hey, before you sign an LOI, get some sort of plan in place. And so what that means is typically get a due diligence schedule, and that could just be an email that just kind of outlines, after I sign this LOI, what happens week 1? Are we going over financials? Are we going over, marketing, sales, product? What is it? And really, you're setting a timeline to close. So you're setting up a plan where, are we closing in 60 days, 90 days, 30 days, 2 weeks? Like, what is the plan? Because if you sign an LOI without a plan in place, every time I've seen it happen, it just goes kind of awry. And, week 1, you're like, I feel like looking at this stuff, it's such a smoother process. If before signing an LOI, you align with the buyer on exactly, again, what are you going to do week 1, week 2, week 3? How long is it going to take to get to the asset purchase agreement? How long is it going to take to final close? Really aligning on those items. And they're all very basic questions. And they can also give you insight into the experience of the buyer as well. Because if they can't answer those questions, like, I don't know, we're just going to kind of go about, like, you're opening yourself up to, again, you get an LOI, your goal is to increase the chances of that closing. And there's a lot of things that you can do before signing it, because you don't want to go down a 2-month path. And then at the end of it, you're like, whoa, that was a complete waste of time. With these simple questions, such as, do you have a due diligence schedule? That just basically means a formal guide of, this is the process I'm going to go through with you to due diligence your company to head towards a successful acquisition. So just ask, like, how long is due diligence going to take? What are we going to go over? What's sort of the plan? Another reason to have a pre-LOI call, just getting on the same page. And I think the buyer would also really appreciate it as well. All right, Rainier, you're left with number 5, regular check-ins. Why are they important?
Regular check-ins. So when you're going through this process, timing is of the essence. Our main saying is time kills deals. So you're going to be responsible for pushing this towards the finish line. Check in both buyer and seller every week. Make sure both parties know exactly what they're working on each week. That way there's no surprises, like we said earlier, and it's just sitting on their hands wondering what happens next. Check in every week, manage expectations, tackle each problem or objection head on, and work your way towards the close. The last thing you want is wondering what the other party is doing and when they're going to get it done. So that's, again, regular check-ins, keep that goodwill and make sure you keep chugging along, keep getting towards that finish line.
Yeah, I think those are huge, and agree to those before you even sign an LOI as well. I was on we signed an LOI with we assisted with a business signing a rather large LOI just last week. Set them up with, hey, this is kind of the weekly check-in schedule, like just aligning on all of this stuff before you go into due diligence just saves a ton of headaches. And again, aligns you with the buyer on what is the plan. But yeah, regular check-ins. It can be, how's the weather? Great. Okay, here's like the 5 things I need. Like, even if you don't have anything to talk about, like, check in every week just to make sure the deal's on track. Because it keeps momentum, it keeps excitement. And most importantly, it increases the odds of the acquisition closing, which, again, when you get a letter of intent, your main goal is to increase the odds of that closing. And you want to continue to sell the business. You want to be in constant communication with the buyer. So regular check-ins can be a great way to do that, whether that's opening up a Slack room. It could be weekly Zoom calls. It could be just having them on text, or just 15-minute phone. It could be so simple, but make sure you check in every single week. Do not go longer than a week without a check-in. So that's all we have for this webinar. We're going to move over to Q&A since we have an additional 20 minutes on this one. But if you're ready to close your dream offer, get in touch with us. Again, we are here to help. We love helping startups get acquired. It's what we do all day, every day. So if you're at a point where you're looking to sell your SaaS company, we'd love to speak with you. We'd love to get you that first offer. We'd love to get you that offer that is above your expectations and really lead you from start to finish all the way to a successful exit. So reach out to us. We definitely, we're here to help. Now we're gonna move over to some Q&A. You guys ready, James, Rainier?
Yeah, hit it.
Do it.
All right. So starting at the top. And then Roger, I know you're in the background, so you're gonna have to feed me some other questions. All right. So if I like the offered price but not the terms, should I still accept the LOI? James, Rainier, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's so hard to know without knowing the terms. I would say if they're out of market terms, probably no. If they are in market terms, probably yes. So just as an example, using what Andrew just said, if it's 10% cash down, 9% on the seller note, that's not one you want to take. But if you flip that, easy answer is if it's 9% down, 10% on a note, probably something that you do want to take. So just knowing what's common and customary in terms of how the structure is paid out goes a long way.
Rainier, what do you think? Let's go around and let's all answer these questions that I got, or
Yeah,
at least give our takes.
Yeah, to me price is obviously important, but so are the terms and the deal structure. If you're listing for $1 million and someone says, okay, I'll give you full purchase price, but I'm putting 100,000 down, that puts a lot of risk on potentially not getting that 900,000 on an earnout or seller financing. So you've got to meet somewhere in the middle where it's a win-win situation for you as a seller. Think about is it price? Is it timing? It goes quickly. Let's say if you got something in your life that has come up, maybe it is worth getting that 100,000 because you've got an emergency that you've got to pay off. So it really depends case by case of what your personal.
Yeah. Again, restating the question, if I like the offered price but not the term, should I still accept the LOI? I'm going to give a hell no on that. I would say terms are as important as the final purchase price because, again, you can get into a situation where the terms are terrible. It's like, I'm going to give you no money down and I'm going to put this whole thing on an earnout. I haven't seen an LOI that bad. But again, terms, you have, James?
I think so, yeah.
I haven't seen that. No money down and just a full earnout.
Yeah, it was something like that, or like 5% down or something like that.
Oh gosh. See, that's not even an offer. That's an offensive offer. So that's not even a real offer, in my opinion. So I'll just give some, personal anecdote as well. A big part, I in a previous life I had sold a SaaS company. And a big reason as to why I accepted it was the terms. What was important to me was a quick transition out of the business, quick due diligence. I wanted to work with a firm that, would move quickly with due diligence. And, it wasn't necessarily the highest offer that I had received, but the terms were more attractive than, say, an additional 20% where I got to stay in the business for, 4 years and a big earnout and stuff like that. That was not attractive to me. So again, I would say to summarize this question, terms can be as important as the final purchase price, depending on what's important to you. Okay, so moving on to the next one. How do I know when to accept an offer or wait for a better one? That's a tough one. All right, okay. So Rainier, you're up on this one. How do I know when to accept an offer or wait for a better one?
That's where you try to make the best decision out of the information that you have. It's like, what is that saying? You've got a bird in the hand and one in the bush. It's like if you've got a really good offer and you put that buyer on ice and you drag it out for too long, that buyer is not going to be happy and they're going to pull out. It makes them feel like you're shopping their offer to other buyers and waiting to get them to pit against each other and increase their offer. So it really depends case by case. If you've got a buyer that's ready to pull the trigger and meets your terms, it's more often than none best to take that offer versus trying to drag your feet out for 5% or 10% more. It's like, are you willing to lose the deal for a 5 or 10% difference?
Yeah, James, I'll hand it over to you, but I gotta agree with Rainier on this one. This one absolutely breaks my heart when I see it happen. When you get a great offer and you try to push for an extra 5 or 10%, and this is where I say, don't get too greedy because the difference between like 5 or 10% or 0% losing the offer, because as a buyer, the last thing, if I am submitting a multi-million-dollar offer to acquire your business, and then I feel like you're shopping my offer and you're not getting back to me, and all of a sudden we were on great terms and now you're ghosting me, there's a good chance I'm going to pull that offer. So when you receive an LOI, you need to make a decision somewhat quickly. You cannot sit unless you've communicated with, say, a deal schedule, which is a tool that you can use where you tell buyers, hey, I'm going to select a winning bid by this date. But if you haven't done something like that and you let a buyer just wait and wait, and also think about what the buyer is going to do when you let them wait and wait, they're going to probably start looking at other businesses because they're actively looking to buy a business. So if you're really just kind of like, it's close, it's a good offer. Maybe you think you can get a little bit more, but again, more often than not, I've seen offers like this fall through because the seller gets greedy. They get greedy and they, start shopping the offer, and then the buyer backs out, and, kind of a big part of acquisitions is that goodwill. And so you don't want to lose that. So if you get a good offer, consider it, and consider it to a point where, this may be the best offer that you're going to get. But if you have other interested buyers, definitely let them know. Say, hey, I've received another offer. Are you in? Are you out? It's kind of time to make a decision. And that's where you have leverage. But again, if you have a good offer in hand and it's really hitting the number that you were looking to sell your business at, I would not risk it for an extra 10% or something like that. That's just my personal opinion. But James, what do you think? So how do I know when to accept an offer or wait for a better one?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of cover the waterfront there, so I don't have a ton more to add. But I think, the maxim that time kills all deals is particularly true between getting a signed offer and an LOI and accepting it. Because like Rainier and you mentioned, and Andrew mentioned too, that's that's a effect of goodwill between you and the buyer. But once you start to like drag your feet, once it gets past a week and a half, and it's pretty obvious that you're shopping around, that's going to shut it down, and that's going to eliminate that offer ASAP. So just keep that in mind. If that 5-10% is worth it to you to lose that good offer, then I don't necessarily agree with you, but good on you. But if it's not, then I would take something that's, almost to a perfect point rather than something that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and just one example, I'll just give high level details, but we had like a $15 million offer, and the owner of the business couldn't make up their mind whether to accept it, and kind of, gave the buyer, I would say, let's just say they didn't seem interested, and it was a very generous offer. We strongly recommended it. And then the buyer backed away, rescinded the offer. And then guess what? And then the seller, as soon as the offer is rescinded, wants the offer back. And the buyer said no, because all trust and goodwill had been lost. So those scenarios really do happen. Buyers will back out of deals if, you breach trust or goodwill, or it doesn't feel right, especially when we're talking, millions of dollars. So if you're not sure, definitely, reach out to us. That was one where we were managing, and we were saying, I strongly recommend you consider this offer. And it was unfortunate that, at the time when they got to a point where they wanted to move forward with the offer, they had just waited too much time trying to get just a little bit better of an offer. And that one just didn't work out. So that happens. Okay, next question. How do you manage your buyer relationships when you have multiple offers? All right, Rainier, you want to take that one?
I was going to say, Rainier, you're the expert.
Yeah, Rainier is good on this one.
Yeah, these are fun. It's fun when you get multiple offers, but as a seller, it's the golden rule. Treat others how you'd like to be treated. Make sure that you have an open line of communication. You're honest and you're fair with all the different buyers. Be upfront. If you've got a deal scheduled and you've got a deadline, remind all the buyers, we've got a deadline by the end of the week to respond. I'll respond to all the offers, and just make sure that everyone has a fair shot. Everyone has the same information. And from there, again, just the golden rule, just keep that goodwill, treat others how you'd like to be treated, and you'll have a good outcome.
I love that. James, what do you think?
I think that's the same. It's really similar to what he said. It's just treating it with everybody with respect. All the buyers are going to respect that you want to get the best offer and the best terms, and they're going to be okay with that. What they're not going to be okay with is feeling like they're being used by you. So tread that line. Keeping that balance is absolutely key.
Yeah, and one thing I would add too is, when you have buyers with, multiple offers, it's perfectly okay to just tell them the situation. And this is something that we actually do at acquire.com. It's one of my favorite things to do, as you guys know, is, we'll do diligence buyers. So you may be in a situation where you just don't know which offer to pick. And so what we'll do is we'll line up calls with each buyer who submitted an offer, and we'll say, hey, here's the situation. John has, 4 offers from different buyers. We'd love to know how you're going to finance acquisition. We'd also love to review your due diligence schedule, and we're going to need it by, Friday, and we're going to look to select a winning bid by next week. And what that does is that helps you understand the experience of the buyer. Do they have a plan? How are they going to finance acquisition? But again, it's us coming in and, really telling buyers, this is a competitive bidding process. So we can kind of play the middleman where, again, you maintain the relationship, but you ask the hard questions that you're going to want to ask before moving with any buyer, especially if you have multiple offers. And this tactic, it's not necessarily a tactic, but and a lot of times when we do this for our larger transactions, sometimes we'll see buyers increase their offer, change their offer, because we're able to go to them and say, hey, we talked to John, and what's really important to him is XYZ cash on close. Or if you could just get to this mark, he had a great conversation with you. He'd love to move forward with you, but he just needs to get it here. So we can also help when you have multiple offers as well. So
can I add one thing to that, Andrew?
Yeah, go for it.
So when you do this process correctly, these backup buyers that don't win the deal, you'll have a good relationship with them that they'll say, if anything happens with the first buyer that you select and it, let's say, falls out, just keep me in mind. And that's the best thing you can do, because not all deals close with the first buyer. And if it doesn't, you've got happy backup buyers to go through and step right in if something goes with the winning bid.
Wow, that's so huge. Yeah, we definitely gotta touch on that. Yeah, let's talk about backup buyers. No one has asked this, but how do you manage backup buyers, and what are they, Rainier?
So let's say you've got 4 different buyers and you're selecting the top bidder. What you want to do is, again, be upfront, let every buyer have a fair shot at the deal. But if select someone else, have the courtesy to give them notice, hey, we're going to go with this other buyer. We enjoyed meeting with you. We think you're more than capable. If anything happens with this buyer, we'll keep you top of mind as a backup buyer. Is that okay with you? And if they say yes, you've kept that bridge open. You've got a good relationship. They're not feeling sour or salty that you went with another buyer. And that's the best outcome. And then just keep that relationship, because anything can happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And we've seen that play out, many times where the initial buyer, maybe, financing falls through, or maybe, they get cold feet or buyer's remorse or whatever it may be. Because again, not an LOI isn't guaranteed to close. You can do everything you can to get to 100%, but it's impossible to get there. So if you do have other buyers interested, politely let them down, and then also thank them for giving a formal offer on your business, spending the time to put it together. They really made an effort to, take care of what you had built. And so at the very least, they deserve the courtesy of, being, updated that they're going to be, if you're moving forward with another buyer, you really enjoyed their conversations or getting to know them. And if anything falls through, that you'll let them know as soon as possible. So that's also a great way to ensure that you get acquired in case there are any issues with the buyer that you do move forward with. Okay, next question. What do you mean by price strategically? James, you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this at the beginning quite a bit. You want to be priced competitively and close to what you want to eventually close for, but you also want to be priced attractively enough so where you garner as much attention as possible. Being within the multiples range that we suggest is really good and effective. And again, ultimately, your goal is to get as many eyeballs in the listing as possible, get as many offers as possible, and then have the offers compete against one another and drive the price up to the point where you're comfortable closing.
Rainier, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just echoing what James said, it's, price it to what market is actually trading at. It's one thing to price it and list forever and, test the market. But if your goal is to sell soon and sell quick, price it accordingly. If you go 5 or 10% below what's trading at market, you may get 10 plus offers. There's a deal that we had 18 plus offers, and we actually ended up bidding above the list price, closer to an aggressive price that, it's just better more often than none to price accordingly, or maybe even below, and then just get that bidding war if your goal is to sell sooner than later.
Yeah, and I would say, just to understand, pricing strategically, it's understanding what buyers are currently paying for profitable businesses, and how that works. Like, just I'm putting up like a little box right here. Buyers will not go outside of the box. If you want them to go outside of the box, the best way to do that is, again, creating a bidding war to the point where buyers are so invested in the deal and they see value in a strategic manner that they're willing to bid outside of, their, whatever their valuation ranges are. And we have so much data on these valuation ranges. And of course, you're always going to hear about, startups getting acquired for 20 times, annual recurring revenue or whatever it may be. But again, those are the outliers. Those are strategic acquisitions, and those are not financial acquisitions or the norm. So when you hear that, just kind of throw it out the window. It's not happening. Like maybe it's your best shot, reaching out to your top competitors. But if you're looking to really sell your business, understanding, the data that we have on buyers that are willing to acquire your company, not just in a year from now, because that's typically how you get those outsized multiples, is building, strategic relationships, which again, don't always work out and are definitely not guaranteed. But buyers, we have data on specifically what they will pay for your business and the reasoning behind it. And you got to put your buyer hat on. You got to think, okay, this buyer, this private equity firm, or this individual, this owner operator, they need to see a return on this acquisition. So how are they going to see that return? And it's typically over a period of, let's call it 3 to 5 years, and that's driven by the profitability of your business. So what they're doing is they're taking a huge financial risk, saying, hey, I'll pay you 5 times forward profit because I think over the next 5 years, I can maintain that profit, get my investment back. And then after that, it's going to be, free cash flow for me. And then that's how I get my investment back. But that 5-year period is very risky. So understanding just, again, how important it is. If you go outside the box, buyers may never see your business, and you may be missing out on, an even better offer that you would see if you had priced it correctly. All right, so we probably got time for one more question. Let's see. Let's do a fire round on these, guys. We're gonna do 3 more. Quick answers. All right, I got an offer, but the buyer hasn't secured financing yet. Should I accept it? Rainier?
No.
James?
There's a little nuance, but no is the ground rule.
I'd say no. I mean, definitely verify they have the funds. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for trouble. Okay, how often should I check in with interested buyers? Rainier?
As often as possible. If they're
James?
interested, don't keep them on the list.
As often as possible.
Yeah, I would say, just like in sales, as often as possible. The one thing I'll add to that is follow up with like some new information, something exciting, like, you close a new customer, or, a different document maybe they haven't seen, or use our living Q&A where you're sharing other questions from other buyers. More information about your business, the better as you're going through an acquisition process. And then obviously once post LOI, at least once a week. All right, last question, then we're gonna call this one because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But if I sell to an international buyer, would they expect me to create a new entity in their country? Rainier?
James, you want to take this?
Yeah, that feels like a James question.
Yeah, not usually, no.
Yeah, so that would basically be that's the responsibility of the buyer. So to answer your question directly on that one, it's no. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for coming to the acquire.com webinar. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Let me get just some feedback in the chat. I always like to know just how we did. How was that? Everybody enjoy it? Could we improve anything? Did you learn something cool? All right, we got this. This was a great seminar. Thanks.
Thanks, Earl.
Great. Very impressive. All right.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks,
Learn
Chase.
laws. Yeah, thanks for coming. This is fun, and we're going to keep doing these. So we'll probably start diving into different topics. Again, every 2 weeks we're doing a webinar. So keep your, oh man, everyone's being so nice. Very insightful. Thanks. Great session. Great seminar. So appreciate all you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to learn about letter of intent. And again, remember, when you work with acquire.com, we have your back from start all the way to a successful acquisition. And I'd like to think that we do this better than any other company in the world. So if you're looking to get acquired, reach out to us. We're happy to chat. We're happy to walk through acquisition strategy and get you acquired. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and hope to see you on the next webinar.
See you,
Cheers,
buddy.
everybody.
Peace.
Cheers.